Hey guys, welcome to your Type 1 Diabetic Friend. I am Tim and it's great to have you joining me on another one of my videos. This time I thought I would chat about my story in terms of how I got diagnosed and how I came to discover I was diabetic. But before I do that, I wanted to say how cool it's been for me to be involved in the online community so far. I'm relatively new actually on the whole online diabetic community, and particularly on Twitter. I've been having a lot of interaction with you guys, and I just wanted to say that you guys are cool and it's been really great. I would encourage you guys watching this to get involved online, because there's a huge online support group, and I think just chilling out, relating to fellow diabetics is what it's about for me, and it's been really great. So yeah, thank you guys. I haven't been on Twitter as much as I would like to have, because we're expecting our baby soon, and it's been sort of preparation of furniture and furniture building and all kinds of crazy stuff. And this is also why this video has taken a while. But anyway, at least we are here. So, did you like my dog? Sorry, random. So, I thought I'll just quickly share how I discovered, how I came to discover that I was diabetic. So, I have been a diabetic since 1998, and that's where I first discovered I was diabetic. And the events leading up to my actual diagnosis were quite interesting. I don't know, maybe a few of you guys will have a similar story or will relate to this, maybe not, but here it goes. So, it was a cold winter's night. No, it wasn't. Actually, I was in South Africa at the time. I lived in South Africa for most of my life, actually, all my life. But this was back in South Africa. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually in London at the moment. But so 1998, I was in South Africa, and it was probably quite warm, not cold. But I remember during that period, it was quite. I was 18. I was living at home. But at that stage, I was looking after someone's house. I was house sitting. I don't know if you guys. I'm sure everyone looks after other people's houses from time to time. But I was looking after a friend of the family's house. It was just me on my own. I think it was about the Sunday. Now, obviously, I started to notice symptoms throughout quite a long period. I would say probably about a 3-week period where my symptoms, if I look back, I can see that I probably had symptoms for about 3 weeks. Obviously, when you're going through it, you're not really sure. But I think this is kind of towards just when I got diagnosed. But it was on the Sunday where I was looking after this house alone that I really felt really thirsty, which I felt thirsty all the time. But this day particularly, I think it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was just chilling out, and I was like so thirsty. So first thing I did is I went to the fridge and got a 1 liter Coke, downed the Coke, not sugar free, which I'm actually a huge supporter of Diet Coke or Coke Zero or whatever else. But anyway, regardless of that, this was full on sugar Coke. I drank the 1 liter because I was so thirsty, and I ate a big packet of crisps. And I remember lying on the sofa or the couch, and I passed out. I was tired, and I remember battling to wake up. I was just like, oh man, I just struggled. I had no energy. And actually looking back, it's amazing that I did get up at all. Considering my blood sugar levels were probably already stupidly high, and I just drank like a whole liter of Coke. Anyway, I got off the sofa eventually, and I think I was going out that night, and I made it to where I was going, which was quite a big achievement looking back. Things could have been a lot worse if I never woke up, potentially. You never know. But anyway, don't want to sound all morbid, but anyway. Then I think where things really kicked off for me was the next day. So at that stage, my buddy and myself worked at the same company, which is probably about, 11 or 12 miles away from my house. And he came to pick me up on his motorcycle, and I had a motorcycle, and I actually still have a motorcycle here in London, which I love. But anyway, he picked me up on his motorcycle, and we used to swap. And that day he picked me up, and I remember I was on the back of his motorcycle going on the motorway, on the freeway, and kind of like, oh man, like I didn't get enough sleep or whatever, and I was like ready to doze off. Oh wait, and before I get onto that step, I'm really sorry that this is all over the place, but just before that point, actually, while I was having breakfast that morning, for some reason, I picked up this like medical book that we had in the house that my folks had, probably quite a thick thing really, and I still don't know to this day what prompted me to do this. I had never known what the symptoms of being diabetic were all about or anything, but I got this book out, and I went to the section on diabetes, and as I read the symptoms of what it was to be diabetic, I was like, yep. I just kept ticking all these symptoms off in my, as I was reading them, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Didn't want to jump to conclusions, but anyway, then my mate came and picked me up on his motorcycle, and that's where we are now. Anyway, so we arrived at work that day. What was I doing at that stage? I think it was like some kind of data collection job. Nothing that exciting at that stage, but one of my earlier part-time jobs. So I arrived in the office there, and I distinctly think that another thing that happened that was amazing is that I had this instinct not to have any sugar. Well, maybe it was because I read the symptoms and I was getting worried, but that day I remember I didn't know having sugar would be that bad for me. Anyway, I just went cold turkey that day with sugar, and I've got an incredibly sweet tooth, and I still do as a diabetic. But anyway, so I had nothing that day. I just drank lots of water because I was thirsty all the time. And then at about 5 o'clock, we headed home, and again I was on the back of my mate's motorbike, holding on the back, and this time I do remember drifting off, just for a few seconds at a time, and thinking, whoa, man, this is just this bizarre. And so some of the symptoms, obviously, it got me so worried that when I did get home, I remember going to the mirror and looking at my tongue in the mirror, looking like, what's wrong with this thing? It felt like my tongue was a sponge. I can't explain it. I thought something was wrong with my tongue. It was going to fall off or something. Obviously, I had the classic symptoms of going to the bathroom, peeing a lot, like crazy, like 5 times a night, 6 times a night. I lost a lot of weight, and as you can see, I'm not the biggest guy anyway, so that was crazy. I was looking like a skeleton. My eyesight went all funny as well, like not my short-sighted eyesight, my long distance. It felt like I just woken up and I had like sleep in my eye, and I kept rubbing my eyes thinking, whoa, I just felt so tired, and trying to focus my eyes. Anyway, so those were some of my symptoms. So when I got home that night, after that day of work, I went to my parents and I went to my mom, and I was like, I think I might be diabetic. And their response was like, yeah, whatever, typical teenager, you think you know everything kind of thing, like, well, diabetic, whatever. Obviously, my mom went with me. By the time we went to the hospital, it was probably about 8:30 in the evening. We went straight through to A&E. It was a private hospital, which is, in South Africa, they're very, very nice. And got to the reception, they were friendly. We explained that I had these symptoms, and obviously I walked in there fine. And I remember the first thing that happened was a nurse or doctor or someone came along, and it's the first time I'd ever used a tester machine. And I remember they pricked my finger and it went on the machine, and the reading came out as nothing really. It was the system kind of gave an error. She tried again, and the same thing happened. And I think what had happened is that my blood sugar levels were so high that the machine just couldn't. I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. The machine didn't pick up anything. So I then had blood tests taken straight after that. And then we were sent home while we were waiting for the results. And I was quite cool during this time. Got a phone call from the hospital, half an hour later. I mean, the hospital was about 1.5 miles away from our house, so it wasn't far. And they phoned and they said, oh, I think you got to come in. You think your son's diabetic. And obviously my mum told me, and this wave of shock hit me. But actually it wasn't too bad, if I'm honest, because I think I had this feeling anyway, so it wasn't a complete shock. Anyway, to cut a long story short, went back to the hospital, got admitted straight away, was told that I was diabetic by quite a mean doctor. He kind of put he instilled so much fear in me that I thought my life was over. And looking back now, obviously, it was ridiculous. So there's ways and means of doing things. Doctors don't always get it right. But anyway, regardless of that, I actually had a good experience in hospital overall. I remember getting on well with the nurses, and had to learn how to do my own injection, my own shots before I left, and all of that. And then, that was where my whole diabetic journey started. I had about a year of a honeymoon period, and I don't want to get into what a honeymoon period is, but it's just basically where your insulin requirement almost goes down to zero. And I was like, okay, cool. It was only after that year, after I got diagnosed, where obviously things ramped up big time. And I think my pancreas just was like, I'm kind of dead, which kind of sleeping sort of thing right now. So anyway, that's my journey. Since then, it's been great. I don't want to tell you the story to be morbid. I think maybe for some of you watching this might not be diabetic. You might even worry that you might have some symptoms of being diabetic. My advice to you would be go and check it out. It's not going to hurt. For all you other guys out there who are diabetic, I'd love to hear your story. We've all got a story, right? And We all got diagnosed at different times and whatever, different circumstances. So anyway, that's my story. I really want to use it as an encouragement as opposed to, oh, wow, poor Tim. Not at all. My life's actually changed for the better being diabetic. And I know that sounds crazy. I'm not one of these overly positive people anyway, but it really has changed. I think I've been a lot more disciplined throughout my life. Since I've had it, I've met cool people. Anyway, there's a lot of it. I'll do another video in terms of how diabetes has changed my life for the better. Obviously, it sucks living with it each day. I'm not going to deny that. Hate going low, all kinds of things. Anyway, but that's my story in a nutshell. Reply to this video. Do a video response on YouTube to this video if you guys are keen to share your story, or comment on the blog. That'll be great. And yeah, feel free to always be in touch. And hope to see you guys on Twitter again. But I think my message right now is Happy Christmas. I hope you like my dog. Oops. Sorry, I'm not actually aggressive. That thing really irritated me trying to get it together. Anyway, have a Merry Christmas.